Chapter 1. The Forbidden Glance. The twin moons of Valtheron hung heavy in the violet night sky, casting their silver glow over the royal garden of House Exile. Marble columns stretched into the stars, wrapped with flowering vines that smelled of sweet smoke and ancient magic. The air shimmered slightly, an after-effect of the planet's thick ozone and the protective dome that covered the royal estates. Mira Langley, human, earthborn, and utterly out of place, stood beside a crystalline fountain, hands clasped tightly behind her back. Her posture was straight, a lifetime of academy training drilled into every bone, but her heart drummed like war drums beneath her ribs. She wasn't supposed to be here. Valtheron was a Class C restricted system, home to the royal bloodline of the Elireth. Tall, otherworldly beings with bioluminescent eyes and skin like polished starlight. No human had ever stepped within their inner sanctum, let alone breathed their sacred air. Mira was the first, a diplomatic envoy brought in under heavy protest to negotiate a fragile truce after centuries of silent enmity. And tonight she was to meet Princess Elireth. They said no human would ever touch royal blood. Lord Varn's voice echoed behind her like ice cracking on stone. The chief warden of the palace had a face carved in stone and a presence that withered sunlight. Mira didn't flinch. "I'm not here to touch anyone," she said evenly. "I'm here to speak." "Even that is too much," he muttered and walked off. She turned back to the fountain, just as a soft ripple shimmered across the surface. From the far side of the garden, a figure emerged. Princess Elireth was smaller than Mira expected. Not short, still statuesque and regal, but less imposing. Her dress flowed like liquid midnight, sewn with threads of actual stardust. Her eyes, glowing faintly blue, studied Mira not with disdain but curiosity. "You are Mira of Earth?" the princess asked, voice like glass wind chimes. "Yes, Your Highness." Mira bowed with practiced grace. "I thought you would be more arrogant." That drew a laugh. "Give it time." Elireth smiled slightly. It was the beginning of the end. Chapter 2. The Gilded Cage. The following weeks blurred into ritual, diplomacy, and eyes that never blinked. Mira was monitored at every hour, her words recorded, her food tested, her quarters swept for poisons, just in case she tried something human. But every dusk, without fail, Elireth would find her in the garden. They talked about everything except the war. Mira learned Elireth loved storm-glass sculptures, ancient Terran poetry, and detested her ceremonial shoes. Elireth learned Mira had grown up in New Berlin, had once seen snow fall on the Sahara, and hated being underestimated. "You are not what I expected," Elireth said once, twirling a blossom between her fingers. "Good or bad?" "Dangerous." They laughed, but something stirred under the laughter. On the 14th evening, Mira reached for a falling leaf at the same time as Elireth. Their fingers brushed. The world didn't end. But the sky shimmered oddly, as if the moons themselves had blinked. Chapter 3. Shadows on the Throne. The palace changed after that. The guards were tighter. Elireth was summoned to endless meetings with the High Council. Mira was kept to quarters for her safety. Only once did Elireth visit, slipping past guards with a confidence that belied her sheltered upbringing. "My father knows," she whispered, pulling off her starlight cloak. "They're planning to send you away." "Because of the leaf?" Mira asked, half-joking. Elireth didn't laugh. "Because of us." Mira sat up straighter. "There's no us." The words came out too fast. Elireth's gaze pierced her. "Isn't there?" Mira opened her mouth, then shut it again. She hated politics. She hated that her skin flushed just from the nearness of Elireth, that her mind kept replaying that single touch like a song on loop. But this wasn't Earth. This wasn't even neutral space. "This isn't possible," Mira whispered. "Your bloodline is sacred." Elireth stepped closer. Sacred and caged are often the same thing. And then she kissed her. Just once. Soft, unsure but real. And everything changed. Chapter 4. Blood and Betrayal. Mira didn't remember falling asleep. But when she woke, the air tasted of metal and static. Guards. Dozens. Lord Varn stood at the front, disgust writ plain on his face. "You've touched her," he spat. "And now you will pay the price." Mira stood slowly, spine rigid. "I'm a diplomatic envoy. You can't. You are human," he snarled, "and that makes you nothing." They dragged her through the palace in chains that bit into her skin. Not one friendly face. Not one protest. Not until they reached the throne chamber. King Sir sat on the obsidian throne, flanked by his royal advisors. His eyes, white as fire, pierced her soul. Elireth was there too. But she wasn't dressed in moonlight anymore. She wore full ceremonial armor, the traditional garb of royal warriors. Mira's heart cracked. "Is this a trial?" she asked through clenched teeth. "No," Elireth said. Her voice didn't tremble. "It is a declaration." She stepped forward, looked at her father, and knelt. "I have touched the human," she said clearly. "And I do not repent." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Mira stared, too stunned to move. "This is not a mistake," Elireth continued. "This is choice. Mine." The king stood slowly. "You understand what this means." "I do," she whispered. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then he nodded once. "So be it." Chapter 5. Exile and Flame. They didn't kill Mira. That would have made her a martyr. Instead they banished her. Quietly. Brutally. Elireth met her at the launch pad, eyes dim. "I should have kept you away," Mira said, voice ragged. "I wouldn't have let you. I don't want to leave." "I know." Elireth reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair from Mira's cheek. "You changed everything. It's not enough. It's the beginning." The last thing Mira saw before the ship doors closed was Elireth, standing tall against the rising sun, alone but unbroken. Chapter 6. Sparks in the Void. Back on Earth, Mira became infamous. Some called her a seductress, others a traitor. The council stripped her of diplomatic credentials. No other species would accept her as representative. She didn't care. She started speaking, first to students, then to networks, then to entire planets. She told the truth, not just about Elireth, but about the lies behind royal purity, the hypocrisy of caste systems cloaked in alien mysticism. She wrote a book, Blood Isn't Sacred, Choice Is. It became a galaxy-wide phenomenon. And then came the riots. On Valtheron. Elireth had not remained idle. She took Mira's words, broadcast them to her people, and revealed the quiet rot at the core of the empire. Protests bloomed like wildfire. Royal archives were leaked. Ancient laws burned. Citizens began demanding freedom not just from humans, but from tradition. The king tried to silence her. He failed. Chapter 7. Touch of a Queen. 7 years later, Mira stood again on Valtheron soil. No guards arrested her. No council waited to sneer. Just Elireth, older now, hardened, crowned. "You returned," Elireth said, voice thick with emotion. "You called," Mira replied. They embraced, not in secrecy, but on the palace steps in front of thousands. A human touching royal blood. And the world watched. And the world cheered.